So this is the structure that will help us think how to design students' learning experiences. I actually don't mean it literally, but I can't think of different words to actually express what I mean in here. So we're not designing their learning experiences, we're designing their environment and enable students to um, progressively engage deeper and deeper into their interactions in a particular second language. So the engagement phase is how we start, and there are a few ways that I will suggest to you how to actually um, structure an engagement phase through exploratory activities where we actually show to students who are those people who function in a particular second language, what do they do, what do they say, when, how, why, and all of that. It's just to sort of get enable students to gather some tools so that they can actually get some traction and engage some of their personal interest in the subject area of load. Okay, so you might have seen already some of these examples in your modules, but I'll just summarize them. So you can begin things with a module. I don't actually like those, so these will be subtitles. So so you can begin an exploratory phase with some puzzles. So you can actually design some icons here that when students click, they will take them to other activities, exploratory activities, so which may contain also other icons, and when they click they will see this, when they click they will see that, and all of that. So different, so in every way students feel that they are actually in control of what they are clicking, how they explore, how they make sense out of all of these things that they actually gather through their journey of working with this puzzle. But it's also important that underneath all these icons, the things that you will put in and the different sub-puzzles that you will include, what's very important that you actually have your eye on the capabilities and priorities so that you do not get taken on the tangent of traditional teaching methods which are stereotyping people and stereotyping cultures, right? So you really want to keep the stuff we were talking in part one about and throughout the semester, which is the demographics, the differences, the different types of text, and the different types of ways in which people express emotions and express intentions. The relationship to Australia, the relationship to Indigenous people, the relationships to other Asian countries if you're teaching, say, Japanese or Chinese. So it's not only about Japan and China. So those exploratory activities that will be hidden underneath those icons have to be expansive. And even if you teach Chinese or if you teach Greek, it really should not mean that the icons that you have here should be just about Greece, right? So this one, this round circles here, it's an indigenous Australian indigenous symbol for gathering, fireplaces, gathering. These ones are indigenous um, markings for indicating that emu was here. These are the emu's footsteps. This is hiragana for friends, and this is friends too. So in a sense, all these icons are kind of, they have one message, which is about friendship. So in a sense, for yourself, and you might actually call it, this is the puzzle for friendships, for people, about people, for being together. So whatever you put in underneath all of these puzzles, any sub puzzles and any exploratory activities for students to investigate, might have this common theme. It's about learning about togetherness. Another way to start an exploratory phase would be to actually go through Google Maps and actually, I had a recording here somewhere, and actually show students a relationship between, say, where we are and where are the people where of the language which you, I mean, the people of the, who speak the language you want to teach to students, obviously don't, even if it is Chinese or Japanese, don't only live in China and Japan. They live in Australia, they live in America. But yeah, just taking students through Google Maps and starting to look at what is where. So this is what I was doing here. So we're looking first for Darwin, and then from Darwin, this is Darwin. So kids actually grow other skills or other capabilities, like working with ICT um, skills or tools. They also learn how to read the map. Not that they don't know by now, but it's actually, and it's also an opportunity to actually explain to students this is um, a Western way of working with maps. So this is how in the Western, this is one sort of way of actually mapping the land. Obviously, this is not the only way. Western cultures don't have a monopoly on mapping the land. So in indigenous cultures, people map land differently because they use the land for different purposes than we did. So the maps reflect the kinds of relationships for which the mapping was used. So, and you might also explore those different maps in indigenous from indigenous context, and you could actually play with students how you would actually create a relationship between Darwin and, say, as in here, Japan, by indicating, by using the Japanese, the indigenous symbols. So that's another sort of activity you could actually create, and in order to stimulate students' imagination and also knowledge. So you can see it's amazing. I mean, I mean, to me, even as old as I am, every time I look at Google Maps and I do this little exercise about checking where Japan is and, you know, the particular maybe sister school um, from Japan and where we are, and when I look at this ocean and all of its colors, I find it daunting. I just can't grasp it. It's well beyond me. So that's another way of starting, another activity. And then you can actually, after that, after you've gone through that Google Maps, you can actually start narrowing the focus and showing students, you know, this is the block, this is our Parap school. So this is the primary school in Darwin. And then also you can show that there are other things around the school. So maybe some cultural group community forum somewhere there might be happening. Different language groups might be having their own halls and meetings there. There could be aged care centers with people doing things, right? Um, anyway, so there. And then another way, and as you and just to okay, and another way to start an exploratory phase could be even to actually prepare what I have shown to you, and you have it in your modular video, where you actually, maybe even after going through Google Maps, you actually click on a particular town, and you might have some symbols here so students can click on. So this is the way, that's the way, that's the way. So anyway, so you can actually think of how to design it best. So students can click on a particular icon in a particular town, and then you take them to a game where students can actually explore a particular town through puzzles, activities of different kinds and so on. So if they click on this community, so you just basically can go through the module, you will recognize in I think these are in module 3 or 4, these activities. I have already produced video on it. So you know that when students click on the town, they find this community, and what they can do now is click on different things which we make available for them, and through games and through different game-like activities they can actually learn about. So the first activity that we have here is basically, this is an Australian community, so find where we are. So it takes students, it takes a person who explored this picture um, to a game, geography game, and uh, the geography game is pretty generic. It is just any silly little game online, um, illustrating to students that we have in Australia different states with different names. But now what has changed is the appropriation of this game. So now it is not like an isolated little activity with no meaning, but now here students, when they explore this community, they have a purpose in mind. First of all, they want to know what it is, where they are, and now as they go through the game, they will be looking for New South Wales, and that's the difference, right? So what you do, you use different games which are online, and you will be using different tools to assist students to make sense out of these games. So you appropriate isolated, meaningless, sometimes even badly designed games online to, but but you use them in a way that inside of this resource they actually are meaningful and inspire playfulness and exploration, right? So it's up to you how you integrate those games, no matter how silly and useless they are, uh, as isolated activities. In fact, inside of the resource, they could be quite good. So once the student actually identified where New South Wales is in Australia, so the student who is exploring this resource already says, okay, oh, I have a pretty good idea where this community is and so on. So now they can go to another picture and explore through games different things that people do. And as they explore, obviously they will be learning things in English as well. So this is for teaching English as a second language, but you could do it in Greek, you could do it in Japanese and Chinese. Now, if you don't focus on the fact that Japanese and Chinese have different characters, and this must be really difficult and mind-breaking, if you actually use those characters as no different than just different words in using Roman letters, then as long as you don't indicate that something is problematic, then students will not necessarily think that this should be a problem, right? It's up to you what tools you allow students to use to manage those different aspects of language use. So depending on the tools you actually make available to students, students will actually relate to the text and activities accordingly. So if you offer little few tools or nothing, then kids find themselves lost and it's all becoming really tiring and difficult and no longer fun. But if you enable students to have access to a number of different tools, but allow them to make sense of the stuff in those games, in those exploratory games, then all of this is fun, right? And this takes weeks for students to go through every activity. So what did I do here? You've got garden, you've got, so I use basically, you will see it in that module, but basically just for people who haven't seen the module, every arrow. So these were just basically flat 2D drawings created by my ex-student. So I just superimposed arrows, and when allowed student, languages other than English, allowed student clicks on the arrow, then they will be looking at how this community organizes its spaces, right? So it has a garden, it has houses, it has clubhouses, it has all kinds of things. And there's a particular house here where there's brother and sister living. So if you click here, it will take students to different activities, learning about the brother, the sister, the way they organize their rooms, the things they watch on television, or the games they play on the internet, all of that stuff. So you can see, like, from one picture, you can take them to many other sub pictures, and there, in each of those different sub pictures, loads students are having a chance to play with games, and in that way learn about different activities, different way people think, different way people express themselves, different things they read, all of that. So this is a shopping center. I don't know, I just made it up, but it does say world. I don't know what it says. Anyway, so Walmart. So basically this is, I don't know what it is, but let's assume this is a supermarket. Let's assume this is a work, this is a house. Well, I actually, this is a building site or whatever. This is just the people from the community. So again, you can click on every person, you can put an arrow that allows your students to click on any of these people and then take them to different activities about those people. So what is this person cooking? What is this person's favorite activity? What does the, and this is adults in the community here. So just the last picture. So you can have those arrows to different people, pointing to each of those people, and again include their exercises or games or whatever, different texts, enabling students to explore, say for example, jobs of these people. So what does the baker do? That takes you to how to 5 million games available online, how to make a French baguette and all of that, or Italian soup, or a policeman, a cook, whatever, any other jobs. And if there are no um, games available, free online games easily available for you in your particular load, then why not create it? So you can see that you could actually use even any of these. So you could use activities. Once you design activities for a particular exploratory environment of this kind, like say this community, this can take students the entire semester of activities, right? So you don't have to actually every day worry, what will I do, what will I do? But once students explore, they might actually, as a result of these exploratory activities, create their own um, books or online spaces where they will actually describe uh, their own communities, say where they live. So these were some sort of things that I was taking you through. So that's that. So in summary, what we had is a few examples. I'm sure there's more, but a few examples, which is puzzles like this one. For example, this one has a theme to build positive relationships between nations and people and different regions. Google Maps, exploring who we are and where we are. And then even from Google Maps, you can move on into more detailed ways of analyzing um, the globe in terms of looking at the particular communities that you identified as speaking a particular second language of your interest. As I said, those communities can be in Japan if you teach Japanese, but then you can actually move into Melbourne as well and see how we explore um, Melbourne community and how many Japanese people live there, and you can just go on with it. Some of it could be based on the real things that Japanese people do say in Melbourne, and so you give your students access to that information in a game-like and playful way, fashion, or in a game-like fashion. But some of them you can just more or less make up, right? So just you will have to see how much you use your own imagination as a teacher, because you want to expose students to particular cultural events, and some of those things will be already ready on the internet, so you can actually appropriate them. So when it comes to tools for meaning making, right? So for students to actually not always rely on you as the knower of what is happening in the text or what is happening in a particular game and so on. So I suggest that first of all you look at the diversification of types of games that you will use in your load resource. So if students are so you can have so if students are exploring for example what the relationships, the building relationships game, like what people do say, for example, if students click say on the icon, which is the gathering, right, that might take them to a place where they can explore what's in here, what's in here, what's in here, what's in here, what's in here. That's just an example. Now, the best would be if all of that was on there uh, um, online in the form of a database. So, but that's okay. PowerPoint will do for now because we're doing things in a simple way. So, an activity of, say, writing might take students to different games and different ways in which you can expose students to ways of writing in a specific language. So basically, some examples that I have here, I have stolen them from somewhere from the internet. So I have here a link. But basically, in hiragana, this is really lovely to show these relationships. Now, I went to China and I noticed that a lot of these characters, which I thought were Japanese, actually I also saw in China. So I was wondering whether they don't have similar meanings. But this is a way to introducing students that our characters, the way we write, is not necessarily separated from the way maybe we speak as well. This is just for the fun of it. You can say, they've done it when they were 5 years old. C for a stretch cat, this is a person, I think. So you can actually show it to them. So students will then start. This is just one way of making sense of letters that they've never seen before, or not in that, the little games like this one. This is not a very good game, hiragana game, but it's all about just playing a little bit and getting used to different way of writing, different way of signing. They can actually play with it. I wish it actually had some voice underneath this game, but maybe you could create one. I mean, this is very easy. You can even do it in the PowerPoint. So so the sign 1, you could actually have this game on your right, or you can have, actually it's online, this game, but you could have this game but also provide a little slide where each of those things has all of these signs have actually sounds. So that would be nice. Actually, I don't like sounds. I actually would like them to actually be integrated in some sentences in text, already in text, not sentences in isolation, but sentences in text. So you can actually do this, but this is connected to a little story maybe that you might show to students. Right, you might show, it could be a story here, and from this story they can go to this hiragana alphabet, so where they actually learn how to write those characters of the story and how to pronounce it and how to but the story should be actually introduced to students in a way that allows them to, this is the story, imagine that in a way that you actually let's see where I can do that, help them make sense out of it. So if I do this and change the color if I can, right? So this is the focus of the story, then there's a little disturbance, then there is a bit of a dialogue, then there is development of the story. And if you actually sensitize students that each of these sentences or even parts of it actually are different emotional intentions, so that would be a nice way to allow students to actually make sense of a story, plus also give them a little command here. So let's say I copy this paste and make it smaller. This is primitive way of doing complicated things, right? Because we may not be able to program as well as some of our colleagues in technology. But so this could be a command, try to write it, you can write it too or something like that. Or you can actually have a drawing here on this icon, on this in this little square, an icon of a pen. So then it takes them to an exercise where they on the one hand can actually click on a game and learn how to actually do these graphics and start actually writing the first sentence or the first emotional intention which is in the text. and they start writing it themselves. So rather than science, that icon would be for every of those, because you can automatize a lot of things that when students actually need your help in classroom, it will be like, did you like it? Did you like what I did? Did I do it well? You know, something like that. Or they might not even, you might even discourage even those kinds of questions, and you may actually want students to engage in these explorations individually and in groups, and then make group presentations, and then group presentations makes presentation to the classroom. And in that sense, really you're there to stimulate joy, but not to actually control the process of learning. Right, so you can actually, a little game which is badly designed, and here's the link to it. I don't know why I have it twice, but you know, because they're two different games. One is hiragana, one is katakana. Okay, but so they're different games here. But basically, a game like this, which is badly designed and which basically only shows you how to write individual characters, you can appropriate it in the context of students actually trying to make sense out of a particular text that maybe, you know, someone in the community wrote, or you know, link it somehow meaningfully into the particular icon on which students clicked in order to do their explorations. So these are the kinds of tools that you can actually use to support students individual, and therefore a way of making sense of foreign text in a way that they can build on what they already know, and where they can actually um, be in control of how they actually go about meaning making. So they know what to click, they know where to go, and if they can't, they can actually ask their colleague, right? So you can see that all these devices that I gave you in regard to um, the curriculum, which means demographics, different texts, and also dividing text into intentions, which are basically emotions that an intention wants to arise in the interlocutor. So we don't speak with words, we speak with intentions, and the intentions are not about meaning. What they are about emotions. So every time we open our mouth, we want a particular emotions to be evoked in the reader. So what I'm doing now, I want to evoke in you an emotion of clarity, also an emotion of inspiration. I feel inspired. That's what I want you to do. I don't want you to tell you necessarily, this is how you do it, this is how you do it, this is how you do it. I'm just giving you ideas of how to use the tools that we were discussing throughout the semester so far, and now how you can actually build on them to create resources so that students can independently now explore relationships in text. And so the text is not created by anyone else. The text is created in order to, so say this is a presentation for all the people, or in order to do other things, like, so you as students actually explore what people do in those countries. They might actually see what kind of text do they read and so on, or maybe they will be just learning what a particular person in the community, like, you know, like that we had those children before, and they were reading, and you know, I'll just show you right here. So when we got to this particular activity where the boy and the girl were actually trying to share with our students what they do, who they are, and so on, you can actually integrate those text um, text activities in those contexts. So that would be great. Other tools are very simple. So for example, if your students can say or can say the text that is actually the one that they study. So you can see that when students engage in this exploratory resource, different groups and different individuals will be clicking somewhere else according to their interests, and will be playing with the games and with the resources you provide according to what they want. So in the classroom, if you have 8 or 12 people or 25 people, everybody will be doing, not everybody, maybe everybody, or definitely different groups will be doing completely different things. right? So you don't have this stepwise progression. You don't have this control where we're all doing same things, right? And that's good because if groups and individuals do different things, so when they do presentations, everyone is learning from the explorations of the other people, right? And that's actually creating a culture of learning in the classroom as opposed to a culture of control. And that's very different.